What's up, everybody? Matt Hofeld along with Rich DeCray, Heartland-Sports.com. This is the Sooner Nation podcast. Devastating weekend in the Big 12. And I say the Big 12. It was devastating for Oklahoma fans, but it's devastating for the Big 12 because your two-time champion, your favorite for the college football playoff, goes down in flames at home to Iowa State, of all people. The Cyclones haven't beaten Oklahoma since 1990. Rich, I think you were 4 years old the last time this happened. 1990, and coincidentally, that loss was in Norman as well for the Sooners. Lots to talk about as Oklahoma prepares in just a few days to take on the Texas Longhorns in Dallas, and that's the game that fixes everything. We'll come back to that here in just a minute, but I'm going to drop some breaking news on you. Of course, by the time this podcast is produced and published and goes live on TalkShoe and iTunes and Heartland Sports, this will not be breaking news. And those of you that are catching us on Facebook Live right now, through our Facebook page, Heartland Sports, you're going to get to have the news live. But I don't know if you've heard this or not, Rich. This is legit breaking news. See, you're smiling at me like you think I'm going to say a joke or something.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect.
This is a real deal. I mean, this is football season, but I'm going to pull us away from football for just a minute and talk basketball. A federal grand jury has indicted the Oklahoma State basketball program for fraud and allegations against player cheating, benefiting players. And they have given Oklahoma State a week to turn over a bunch of information or send a representative to New York to meet this grand jury in person. My thought is this thing is snowballing. I mean, when Lamont Evans was arrested a couple weeks ago, you thought, boy, that could be bad for Oklahoma State. And you feel bad for Mike Boynton because the big question there is, how much did Mike Boynton know what was going on? You got Mike Boynton's an assistant coach. Evans is an assistant coach. Brad Underwood's the guy in charge of the program. You talk about picking your spot and leaving at the right time. Brad Underwood goes to Illinois. Mike Boynton, Lamont Evans are the two guys that are considered to replace him. Boynton gets the job. But the thing that nobody knows and no one's had the opportunity to find out is how much of what Lamont Evans was doing did Mike Boynton know about. And you want to say he didn't know about anything, but Boynton has described Evans as like a brother to him. They're good friends in basketball, good friends, off the court and on the court. We're going to find out. I mean, the Oklahoma State basketball program is going to go under not the NCAA microscope, but they're going to go under the FBI microscope. And there are things that you might be able to curtail and dance around with the NCAA, but you're not getting away with anything from the FBI. And if you're an Oklahoma State fan, I think you like this from two perspectives. From the first perspective, it gives you the opportunity, it gives your program the opportunity to say that Lamont Evans was a lone wolf. Here's all the evidence. Here's everything. And Lamont Evans was acting alone. There's nothing else that's going on inside this program that's shady. It gives you that opportunity, and you hope that's the best result that comes out of this probe. But the flip side is, if it's dirty, if there's things going on outside of Lamont Evans, if other players are there, and you look at Carroll, he's one of the players that people have talked about a whole lot as he's still a guy within the program, and his name has been linked to some of these investigations, some of these initial FBI reports. You got to think he's the guy everyone's looking at. But if there's things going on, if there's a little bit of shadiness going on, if there's some filth going on in your program, you have the opportunity to flush that out. And the reason I'm saying that's a good thing is it's not like Oklahoma State was at the Louisville status. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they're at the Kansas status. It's not even like they were at the Iowa State status in basketball. They were an up-and-coming team. They had one run last year under Underwood where they made it back to the NCAA tournament. But this is a good start. If you're going to have to set the reset button, at least you're setting it now instead of 4 or 5 years down the road where you could have been one of those continuing Big 12 contenders, on a yearly basis. Just a couple of thoughts, almost 5 minutes worth of ranting about basketball in the midst of a big week of football. But you got to think, again, if you're Oklahoma State, if you're a fan of this basketball program, if you're a member of this team, or if you're on the coaching staff, there's no easy resting right now, is there?
No, not at all. Because you look at some of the other programs that have found themselves in a little bit of legal trouble. Maybe not to this extent where it was involving the FBI. But you look at what those types of accusations even can do to a program as well as their future. Is it going to be a difficult road? Most likely. Is it going to be something that's you can recover from? Absolutely. Because I look at other programs that have had what I would consider to be a worse scandal than what we're seeing going on at Oklahoma State. And these are programs that have returned to the top, whether that's been football or whether that's been in basketball. So is it, again, I'm just asking the question, is it something Oklahoma State can recover from? And I do believe that they can.
Well, let me ask you this question. And I promise you we're going to talk about football after this question. If you're Mike Holder and you find out that Mike Boynton either knew what was going on with Lamont Evans or he was involved on some level. Let's just say he knew. Let's say Mike Boynton knew that Lamont Evans was dirty. He knew that Lamont Evans was doing these things. He's named the head coach, and he keeps Lamont Evans on his staff knowing that. Let's say that's what comes out of this probe. Do you get rid of this guy before he even has a chance to coach his first season? I mean, what do you do? Because the season's a month away. So what do you do? Let's say you're 6 games into the season, and then the FBI releases this information. Yeah, Mike Boynton knew this. Mm-hmm. What do you do at that point?
If it's me running the show, I do believe that you would have to separate ties. And the reason being is that if someone is willing to do some things that are considered questionable before things even start up for them, what's the reality or what's the thought process moving forward? It is that they'll continue to engage in these different shady activities. So I do think if this information comes to light, there was all around knowledge that said activities were happening, then you have to separate ties. There's literally no way around it.
Somewhere I feel like Sean Sutton's just sitting around waiting on a phone to ring.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
We're in a pinch, man. Can you come help us out? All right. Oklahoma falls 38-31 to Iowa State in Norman. I joked about it. No one really appreciated my joke as I'm leaving the stadium Saturday afternoon. I said, I tell you this right now, this is the most disappointing loss of the Lincoln Riley era. And again, no one found humor in my humor. The shock value, I think, but you could, to me, sitting in the stadium and watching that game unfold, by the time it ended, the shock value was over. I mean, it was the third quarter, you knew that things weren't going well for Oklahoma. And when Seibert missed that field goal, which I have questions about that, why not go for it? You've got Baker Mayfield, you've got this offense. What do you think? Which odd against Iowa State? Which is the higher odds on 4th and 4 that you're going to pick up 4 yards out of that Seibert's going to hit a 44-yard field goal? To me, the odds are in favor of giving Baker Mayfield, Trey Sermon, give them the opportunity to make something happen. And I feel like they shied away from Dimitri Flowers as well. But we'll talk about that. But at that point, when Seibert misses the field goal, you're thinking they're going to lose. I mean, honestly, there wasn't a person in the stands who really had a bunch of faith that Oklahoma was going to win that game. When that field goal happened, my phone started blowing up. And you could look at the Iowa State sideline, you could look at the Oklahoma sideline, and you could look at the stadium fans, and you could tell this thing has gone off the rails. But for me, by the time it all ended and I walked out of the stadium, there was no shock value. I was actually kind of, and I hope I don't offend people, but because I am an Oklahoma fan, I was born and raised as an Oklahoma fan, but I was kind of laughing about it afterwards. Because I'm like, I can't believe I just saw this. And I was like, we just witnessed history, the nation's longest winning streak. If you were to put money, I mean, honestly, you say, Richard, you have to bet $1,000 of your own money. Look at this schedule. You're going to pick who's going to end the nation's longest winning streak. you're not even considering Iowa State to put your money on. You might consider Kansas State a little bit. You're going to consider Texas a little bit. You're going to consider Oklahoma State a little bit. But your money's going on Ohio State, most likely, at the beginning of the season. Yep, that's where this streak's going to end. Iowa State doesn't even come. They're right there with Kansas. They don't even come on your radar. So the shock value, I saw one headline today that said that, looking back at it, this could be the upset of the year. There's no could be to it. This is the upset. This upset is more egregious than Baylor losing to Liberty.
You also have to throw in the circumstances of the game.
Sure. Yeah.
Because Iowa State's coming to Norman. They're playing in what has been considered one of the most difficult places to play in the Big 12, and they're doing it without their starting quarterback. Not only are they doing it without their starting quarterback, they're doing it with a former walk-on who's starting in his place. And so you get out there, and I hate to say this, but there was a trend that I saw begin to shape or to take form. And we saw it going back to Baylor. They had the bye week. We play Iowa State, and what happens? Well, Baylor's quarterback gains a lot of confidence throughout the game. We saw Iowa State, the exact same thing happened. And then what happens with Oklahoma? You lose two big-time playmakers. I would consider them newcomers because Abdul Adams didn't receive very many carries last season, even though he did play. He's in that starting role. You lose him in the first half. You lose a guy like CeeDee Lamb in the first quarter. And all of a sudden, your big threats down the field in the receiving game and your home run threat out of the backfield, they're gone. And so I think you don't agree with me. I can tell by your face.
Finish your thought.
But I'm looking at the circumstances of how everything played out going into the game, knowing what we knew, breaking some news initially there, and looking at if that label of upset of the year is correct. I have to agree.
Yeah, you're not going to. I don't think you're going to see another upset this monumental because of what you said. Jacob Park is gone. You got a third-string quarterback. You got Joel Lanning playing linebacker and quarterback in this game. It's in Norman. But here's what I'm gonna softly walk on this eggshell, so to speak. This loss is on the defense. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think there's any way around it. This loss is on the defense.
I agree with you.
But the losses of Abdul Adams and CeeDee Lamb were significant, but that didn't cost the game. The offense had this game turned in the third quarter. When you watch the first quarter play out, even when Iowa State kind of does that late drive for the field goal right before the half, I'm thinking, man, Iowa State came to play. I mean, they're fired up for this game. Like everybody else, Oklahoma is getting the best shot from their opponent. They won't. There's not another opponent that I would say is going to get fired up to play as much as they were for Oklahoma last week. I mean, are they Farmageddons this week? You think they're going to be just as jacked to go play Kansas as they were Oklahoma? No. And so you're thinking going into the half, man, this is just really this Iowa State thing is they're here to play. But in the third quarter, Iowa State gets the ball. They go down. They come down and they score. Oklahoma is responding. I think they're on the 4-yard line, and Trey Sermon fumbles.
Did he fumble, or was that a collective effort?
I think it's Trey Sermon because I watched that replay. Baker sticks the ball in there, and then he lets it go. Trey Sermon, and what you're supposed to do, just going back to my playing and coaching days, what you're supposed to do, if you're the running back, and that's a zone read or RPO, however you call that, it changes its name like every year. When I was in playing and even when I was coaching, it was a zone read because you're reading whatever. We don't want to get into coach talk, but Baker sticks that ball in there. The running back, his job is to clamp on that. And if the quarterback wants it back, he's got to pull it out. That's why you can tell whether it's a play action or if it's a replay, because on a play action, the quarterback will usually use one hand, typically his left hand. He'll use one hand to put the ball in the pocket. Well, if it's an RPO or a zone read, he uses both hands. And the reason why he uses both hands is because he needs to have the strength to pull that ball back out if what he reads from the defense determines him to pass the ball or to run the ball. But the running back's job is to make it where the quarterback literally has to pull it out. Well, when you watch that replay, Baker sticks the ball in the pocket, in there, and then he lets it go. Trey did not clamp down on it. So to me, that fumble goes to Trey Sermon.
But the problem is the ball comes out behind him for me.
Because he doesn't clamp down on it. I mean, think about it. You're in motion, right? You're moving forward. I stick something in your gut and you don't get it. Where's that going to end up? It's not going to end up in front of you. It's going to come behind you. Laws of physics, because you're moving forward. But whatever. The fumble happens. Mm-hmm. Regardless of whose fault it was. By the way, if you look on the stats, it's credited to Trey Sermon anyway. The fumble happens. Now the defense they've got Iowa State pinned. Mm-hmm. I mean, this should be a 3-and-out. Maybe you give up one first down, but shouldn't be worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, you're flipping field position. But instead, the defense gives up another touchdown. Now you've got the opportunity to kind of jump back in there with a field goal, and this is what I don't understand. I think we saw the youth of Lincoln Riley. I think we saw for the very first time Lincoln Riley say, "Oh crap, I don't know what to do here. Let's play it safe." Because Lincoln Riley wanted points on the board. More than anything else, he was playing for points, not playing. And he didn't realize how far his back was against the wall, in my opinion. Lincoln Riley's a great coach. It's a tremendous coach. But he's a young coach. These are first-time game experiences that he has never really had to be the guy who makes a decision. In this situation last year, Lincoln Riley's the guy talking to Bob Stoops and saying, "Here's what I can do with the offense. If you choose to go for it, here's what I can do. I can guarantee 4 yards on this play." That's his job last year. His job this year as the offensive coordinator and the coach is to think, what do I do here? Do I put points on the board or do I try to go for the jugular? And he opted to go for points on the board. And if I'm going to really kind of criticize Lincoln Riley, I'm criticizing this play call. This should have been you go for it. This is Iowa State. It's Iowa State. You need 4 yards in a crucial point in the game. You go and get 4 yards. But instead, the field goal goes, and that's where the offense, those are the mistakes. 2 costly mistakes from this offense. And it turns out, when you lose by 7, you just left 10 points on the field, but the turnover and the missed field goal. You know what I'm saying? So you convert those, you win by 3. I mean, in the theoretical world. Go ahead.
I do agree with you. First off, that was a critical moment of the game, and it's where the tide really shifted. Momentum. You're talking about body language. That fumble was when everything shifted. And again, there were opportunities. I think the most disappointing part about the game for myself is how quickly Oklahoma started, because you saw them put up 2 touchdowns pretty early on. Mm-hmm. In fact, they were up 17-3 at one point. And I can totally see when you're up 17-3, you're putting up points pretty quickly, going into a bit of a cruise control. Mm-hmm. Allowing 13 points in the first half, I don't think is inexcusable. We came into this game saying Iowa State would score points. We weren't naive enough to expect a shutout. We weren't thinking that they would just be limited to a field goal even. Right. I think my score prediction was for them to score 13 points the whole game. Maybe it was 16. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was pretty low, needless to say. And so the 13 points in the first half didn't surprise me. I thought Oklahoma had ample opportunity to win that game. And unfortunately, they just weren't able to capitalize. But again, the most disappointing fact when I'm looking at the game in its entirety is knowing that the offense was off to, possibly their best start of the season. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, and it's not like they're giving up a lot of yardage. They're doing what they're expected to do. And then everything in the second half just to crumble.
Well, the two things I look at that happen offensively, you have to have time to adjust. When Abdul Adams, in my opinion, Abdul Adams getting injured was more significant than CeeDee Lamb, because it changes. We talked about it last week. You use the run to set the pass, and we've talked in previous shows about how Abdul Adams hits that initial burst. Mm-hmm. He hits that gap so quick.
And you saw that on those first drives.
Right. Well, with Trey Sermon, who has a lot of talent, and he's only a freshman. I think he's a 3-year player. I think he's that talented. You'd have him for 3 years. but he has to wind up. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't initially hit, which surprised me is why we didn't see Marcelius Sutton, because Marcelius Sutton has that burst as well. But the drawback to Marcelius Sutton is blocking. But they're going to have to figure that out before Texas. But I think losing Abdul Adams changed the game plan offensively. And Lincoln Riley has talked about this in the past. It takes him some time to find a new rhythm. Your rhythm is disturbed. Now you got to find a new rhythm. And I think they were getting there until they fumbled. My question is, why not use Dimitri Flowers more? Why not make, when you lose Abdul Adams, why does Dimitri Flowers not take a bigger role within the offense? And I really, when you see Adams go off the field, I even said it. We're going to see a lot more of Dimitri Flowers. No, we see Rodney Anderson. And again, not dogging Rodney Anderson, but when you look at the guys who have made plays on this team, Rodney Anderson is not one who just kind of pops into your mind, is he?
Unfortunately, no.
So you got that going. You got that going with your offense. What changed with the defense is Iowa State discovered Jordan Thomas.
Yeah, which I don't know what's going on.
You also have to – the most significant injury that happened on Saturday was Stephen Parker. In Oklahoma, I know Lincoln Riley, you did the injury report.
I disagree.
Okay, well, let's talk about it for just a second. Mm-hmm. You did the injury report, and I think, everybody basically said, Lincoln Riley said, we don't know. They're going to be game time decisions.
Right, which, understandable, coach speak. You don't want to tip Texas off for anything, right, or have them prepare for less than what they could by saying, well, we can't roll anybody 100% out at this point.
Yeah.
So
you disagree with Stephen Parker?
I do, and the reason being is you had mentioned that with CeeDee Lamb and Abdul Adams, you said Abdul Adams was a bigger loss than CeeDee Lamb. I disagree with that as well. CeeDee Lamb's the number one. In my opinion, he's the downfield threat for Oklahoma. And you can put guys on to cover him, but because of his speed, because of this.
I want to apologize to our folks watching Facebook Live. I didn't put my phone on silent. Keep talking.
That's okay. You look at these guys, specifically CeeDee Lamb, as the downfield threat, and one of the things you have to realize is that it doesn't matter who's covering him. It doesn't matter what type of defense, if they're going to do a cover 2, cover 3. It doesn't matter. CeeDee Lamb has the ability to make plays.
Well, we're no longer on Facebook Live, but go ahead.
Okay.
Keep going. CeeDee Lamb has the ability to make plays.
And so when I look at the loss of CeeDee Lamb, what I saw Iowa State do was adjust. After he made that diving attempt into the end zone, he comes up holding his shoulder. We're assuming it's something, hopefully just a stinger, something that he tweaked and isn't serious. But after CeeDee Lamb stepped out of the game, Iowa State drops. More often than not, they were dropping about 8 players into coverage and bringing 3.
But that was going on before CeeDee Lamb was in.
Well, and here's what I'm saying is with that, what did Oklahoma do?
They didn't use Dimitri Flowers.
Everything went underneath, and everything went for very short yardage. When this is an Oklahoma offense that averages a first down every time they throw the ball. It's a team that Abdul Adams averages a first down every time he touches it. You've got Trey Sermon, who's above 6 yards per carry. You've got Marcelius Sutton, who's just under, I think, at 5.9 yards per carry. So why? I don't understand. I can't wrap my mind around how Oklahoma wasn't able to move the ball downfield consistently. And when they did, you're talking about the 4th and 4. Why those opportunities weren't taken advantage of.
Right. Well, see, and I think we're not going to see eye to eye on this, but I think what you're saying is actually making my argument for me. Because if you're dropping 8 in coverage, no one's going to be open. It doesn't matter if you have CeeDee Lamb in there or not. That's where you keep Dimitri Flowers. You get him a rub off, where he acts like he's going to block, and then he goes out in the flat. Dimitri Flowers, even if you get 6 yards to catch at Dimitri Flowers, you're bringing somebody up. That's why I thought Dimitri Flowers should have been better used in this game. But here's the thing with CeeDee Lamb. Marquise Brown is still underperforming. Marquise Brown is that guy that has untapped potential, but right now he's so raw. He's so there's so much going. Like, for example, on the final drive, Baker, it's not a perfect pass, but it hits him in the hands. You got to catch that. Mm-hmm. But you got guys like Marquise Brown. You got You got Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews had the drop in the. I say it was a drop. It was a broken up pass.
Well, it hit him in the hands. I mean, I actually got a good photo of that.
End zone.
Yeah, I sent you a photo of that. I mean, he's open. It hits him in the hand. You got to catch it. But I'm just saying, Jeff Badette, you've got playmakers.
Can I ask you a question? Because you're talking about Dimitri Flowers and the lack of use.
Right.
Do you realize how many receptions he had in the game?
No, I know, but he should have had more, and he should have more out of the back. He should have had how many? What I'm asking is, how many carries did he have?
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
All right, look it up and tell me. Because here's the thing. Go ahead. Oh, you give me the.
Yeah. 1 attempt, 1 yard.
Yeah. So I mean,
One touchdown.
He becomes more. he becomes more. He becomes more dangerous as a running back than a fullback, because all of a sudden, if you're never handing him the ball and he's in the game, you know what he's in the game for. You know what I'm saying? But if you put him in the backfield and now all of a sudden he's either going to run or he's going to go on the passing route, he becomes you have to change your defense for him. There's nothing that they did with Dimitri Flowers to change the defense. Yeah, they know he's going to catch passes because that's what he was in there for. But we also know he can run the ball. And that's my whole point.
Right.
Didn't he have a big game against Iowa State last year, running the ball?
I don't know.
You don't have to look that up. But anyway, my point is, I feel like he was underused. Defensively, Jordan Thomas.
Yeah.
I have a theory on Jordan Thomas.
Last year, Dimitri Flowers against Iowa State, 0 carries throughout the entire season. Steps in against Iowa State, 22 carries, 115 yards, and then 0 carries for the rest of the season.
Right. I mean, that just same offensive coordinator. They know he can run the ball. Mm-hmm. You've got to have something out there. Is he not a better option than Rodney Anderson?
No, I can't answer that question because I genuinely like Rodney Anderson.
It's not a knock against the person of Rodney Anderson.
The product on the field states that you need to go elsewhere. And I know you didn't get an opportunity to listen to the reasoning as to why Rodney Anderson was put into the backfield after Abdul Adams went down. And the way that Lincoln Riley stated it was that they still believe in him, which is great. Right. I think a lot of people believe in Rodney Anderson. But he's clearly shown that after 2 seasons of season-ending injuries, that Rodney Anderson isn't, I don't want to say he's not at 100%, but he's not at game speed.
He's not the Rodney Anderson that came to OU. And that's expected. I mean, he can get back to being there, but this is really his first full season of football at OU.
Right.
Dimitri Flowers is an experienced veteran. Dimitri Flowers is going to be making some money in the NFL. I don't understand. I mean, again, but the defense lost this game. And we got to go to Jordan Thomas now. I'm going to let you give initial thoughts on Jordan Thomas, and then I have a Jordan Thomas theory.
The problem for me, Jordan Thomas comes in, takes over a starting role at the University of Oklahoma at the cornerback position, and all of a sudden we are hailing him as this lockdown type cornerback. This lockdown cover guy who has a lot of NFL potential. If he had NFL potential, I feel like it's been ruined in the past 2 games. And his draft stock has decreased greatly. But I'm not convinced at the same time that Jordan Thomas is 100%. And I'm not convinced that he will be throughout the rest of the season. When you look at competitors, they're guys who want to play. And they're guys who aren't going to be up front and tell you, hey, I'm injured. You probably need to sit me this week. The only issue with that is I don't know what's behind him. Is it so bad after losing a guy like...
freshman behind him.
Right, but I'm saying you lose a guy, Jordan Parker,
right,
out. Okay, so we kind of knew what we had there. There was another guy that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name this week who played a lot last year, who started last year, the season at least, faded off. I don't know what we have talent-wise behind Jordan Thomas, and I feel as though when you are in a coaching position, you're trying to put the best players on the field. Is that the case? It may be, but again, I'm not convinced that Jordan Thomas is healthy.
Well, that's a good point, and it's a fair point. But there's no depth. I mean, and this is what we talked about. When Parker went out, we thought, well, here's the thing. You can't afford to lose anybody else because there's no one there now. But my theory on Jordan Thomas, I'm going to say 2 things about Jordan Thomas. My first thing I want to say is my theory is we elevated this kid to be the best corner on the team. We elevated him to be an all-conference type guy.
And then you jinxed him.
Well,
where was his name?
Yeah, I get that. But here, let's look back. Let's look back at last year. Last year, the cornerback position was so terrible opposite of Jordan Thomas. I mean, you had all those guys going there. You had Mbaser, you had Dakota Austin, you had all those guys going there last year, and they just got hammered. That's who you went after. You didn't go after Jordan Thomas's side because you knew it was a gimme on the other side of the ball, and you had to rotate safeties over there and play Tampa 2 or whatever, Tampa 3, whatever you're doing to help protect that side of the field. And Jordan Thomas hardly was challenged last year because opposite of him, it was terrible. I think Jordan Thomas has been this bad all along. We've just not noticed it. Because think about the first couple of games of this season. You're putting Parnell Motley in there, a first-time starter, and what are they going to do? They're going to go after the new guy. And everyone's singing the praises of Parnell Motley because he's rising to the challenge, but Thomas is not getting challenged. And so we're saying, well, it's Thomas Island out there. He's locking down one side of the field, and Parnell Motley's defending the other side of the field. This is the best cornerback duo we have in the Big 12 until Baylor says, well, let's challenge him. I don't know if they saw something on film. I don't know if what they saw, but Baylor said, let's challenge Jordan Thomas.
Right.
And Jordan Thomas was abused in Waco, and then he was abused this weekend. And here's what it is. It comes down to fundamentals. It's just Jordan Thomas is physically gifted to play this position. But fundamentally, he's flawed. Go back to the what ended up being the game-winning touchdown against Iowa State. He's in position, but he doesn't make the right move to play the ball. You see what I'm saying? He's there.
I do.
He's there on the coverage. And Lazard is a great receiver. If he played for another team, would be talking about him for the Blitnikoff or whatever the award is that goes to receivers. He's a great talent, but Thomas is there. And then you go back and you look at this film and you look at the missed tackles. You look at the fundamentals. And when you look at this and you think, well, the good news is it's fundamentals. He's just fundamentally flawed, so you work on fundamentals. But the bad news to that is you just had your bye week. Your bye week is where you go back to the basics and you work on fundamentals. You work on turning your hips. You work on rotating your head when the receiver's hands come up. When a corner sees the receiver's hands come up, that's when he's supposed to turn and swipe. Jordan Thomas doesn't do that. You don't see him begin to swipe until the ball is in the receiver's hand. At that point, it's way too late. That last touchdown, he never turns his head to the ball. There are fundamental flaws with Jordan Thomas, and you've already had your week to work on fundamentals. So what do you do now? Do you portion off a part of your practice to not focus on Texas so you can go back to fundamentals? No, you've already had a week to do that. So I don't know how you fix that because you got to prepare for Texas. And let me tell you something. Texas has seen it. Everybody else has seen it. And Oklahoma, the scary part here, if you're an Oklahoma fan, is you've not even played the good offenses of the Big 12 yet. You've not played West Virginia. You've not played TCU. You've not played Oklahoma State. And Texas is struggling. And I've already seen it. I've seen it in print. I've heard it on the radio. Everybody talking about, well, a struggling Texas offense could be the cure for a struggling Oklahoma defense. I say it's vice versa. A struggling Oklahoma defense in the last two games has been the cure for a struggling Baylor offense and a struggling Iowa State offense. The week prior to this last weekend, Iowa State scored 7 points on Texas. 7. So they come limping into Norman with a third-string quarterback, and they put up 38. I don't think anybody in their right mind can say, oh, yeah, but because Texas is struggling, well, we're going to, our defense is going to rebound this week. No, you're not. And then I've been talking for a long time. There's one more aspect, and then we'll officially transition all the way into Oklahoma, Texas.
I did want to say one thing about Jordan Thomas, and you said maybe it's something that people have seen on film. I go back to that Ohio State game, and for Ohio State fans, I know that a lot of the concern has centered around JT Barrett and his ability with accuracy. or the struggle of accuracy. And so when you go back, if you were ever to sit down and watch that Ohio State game, watch Jordan Thomas. Watch how many times that he gets beat and the ball is simply overthrown or not on target, uncatchable. Because there were a couple of times where they're zooming in, obviously, where the play is going to be, and I see Jordan Thomas whipping around, and he's 5 yards behind his receiver.
Mm.
If JT Barrett made those throws, Ohio State wins that game. Everyone praised the Oklahoma's defense at that point in time, and rightfully so. But again, I think it may have been a knee-jerk reaction in hindsight. And when you look at it, that was Oklahoma's defense is what Oklahoma's defense is. JT Barrett just couldn't make the throws, and Oklahoma challenged them to.
Yeah, and that was a great statement. Oklahoma's defense is what the Oklahoma's defense is. And I think if you're in the film room and you're an opposing offense, you're looking, where's the weakness? Where can I attack?
Mm-hmm.
And it starts right there.
Well, yeah, and you go back to even Tulane, everybody was running the ball.
Right.
And so what happens following Tulane? People continue to run the ball.
Right.
And now all of a sudden Baylor steps on it and they challenge Jordan Thomas.
Here's the thing as we transition into Oklahoma, Texas. I think when you look at the skill set of this Texas offense, particularly with the offensive line, Texas is hurting along the offensive line. This offensive line has been demolished by injury. But you look at what the Iowa State game plan was. You spread this defense out. You run screens. David Montgomery wasn't dangerous against Oklahoma because of his running ability. He was dangerous because he caught the ball out of the backfield. Soften that defense, soften the defense, and then you go long on them. And that's what Iowa State did. What Oklahoma has to try to figure out, because, again, I heard people talking about it Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I heard just people asking, where was the blitz? Why did they not bring a blitz? You know why? Because they're so spread out. Where do you blitz from? And they're running those plays out to the sideline. And what happened with Oklahoma's defense on Saturday, two things. The first thing that happened is they couldn't shed blocks. And the second thing that happened is they couldn't make tackles in space. And people want to criticize Mike Stoops and make him the fall guy here. Well, Mike Stoops can't go out on the field and shed a block for a guy. Mike Stoops can't go out on the field and tackle in space. What Mike Stoops can do is he can put his guys in a position to make plays. And when I'm evaluating a coordinator, my question is, did he put his guys in position to make plays? That's why when Josh Heupel was let go, I was okay with it. I'm a huge Josh Heupel fan. I loved what he did as a player. But at the end of the day, did he put his offense in position to make plays? No. Is Mike Stoops putting his guys in position to make plays? Well, the answer to that question is yes. Anybody who disagrees with that has not gone back and watched the film and seen where the players are. Now, the knock against Mike Stoops is not that he's not putting guys in position to make plays. He's putting guys in position to make plays, and those guys are fundamentally flawed. So the question is Mike Stoops focusing enough on fundamentals? You know what I'm saying? And at what point do you do that now? I mean, there's not a single player on Oklahoma's football team that wasn't fundamentally sound when they got to Norman. You don't get a scholarship to the University of Oklahoma if you're fundamentally flawed. I've been to those camps. I've seen the way they work through those kids, and they look at everything. They look at footwork. That if you're a quarterback, I remember watching a camp one time. Josh Heupel was out with all these prospect quarterbacks, and he's literally watching their follow through. And he was looking for people, these quarterbacks, were able to exaggerate, even over-exaggerate their follow-through. The follow-through was so important to Josh Heupel. These guys are looking for a fundamental – they want these kids to be fundamentally sound. They're watching the way they run the 40. Tim Kish was doing the 40, and he's not timing. He's got other people timing. He's watching their fundamentals. So you don't get to come to this university unless you know the fundamentals. But fundamentals have to be, it's repetition. It has to be worked on, has to be worked on. I'm questioning, when are they doing it? And if it's happening with enough frequency. If you're gonna criticize Mike Stoops, that's where you don't criticize on the X's and O's, because the guys are there to make plays. They're just not making plays. You criticize on the fundamentals. Now, where does that bring us with Texas? Well, Texas has nearly the same skill set offensively that Iowa State did. They don't have a great offensive line. They don't have a great quarterback. But what they do is they have running backs who can run and catch, and they have receivers who are tall and athletic. I would expect to see a very similar offensive game plan from Tom Herman that we saw with Iowa State. And the question is going to be is whether Texas the question to be is, does Mike Stoops find a way to blitz? Knowing that that's what they're going to do, where do you blitz from? In this situation, when they have you spread out, how do you bring pressure on the quarterback? Do you know how many sacks Oklahoma had Saturday?
I don't.
They had one, and it came on a blitz. I mean, so you've got to figure that out. You've got to figure out where you're bringing somebody hot on a young quarterback. And they didn't do that Saturday, but they've got to do it in the Cotton Bowl this coming Saturday. Your thoughts?
No, I agree with you. Obviously, pressure on the quarterback helps out the defense, more specifically the secondary, as it limits the time, limits the ability of a player to get downfield, have that big play opportunity really absorbed or taken away. So I agree with you in the fact that Oklahoma has to get pressure on the quarterback. We look at a guy like Buechele or even a guy like Ellinger. I don't know who's slated to start for that game because I heard Buechele was bad.
It's been. I think you're going to see both of them. It's been a back and forth. Ellinger leads them to victory over Kansas State. So you ride the hot hand, or do you go back? Are you faithful to your guy that keeps getting hurt? I don't know. We'll have to find out.
So regardless of who starts at quarterback, the reality of the situation for Texas is that they can make things happen by extending plays,
right.
And I think we will see a little bit of that. But I don't understand how you can have a guy like Okoronkwo and not use him. I get that he was used to set the edge, but that's not where he's going to make his money. If he's going to play in the NFL, it's going to be in the pass rush. And so he's going to have to be used in that capacity on the collegiate level as well.
But that's what I'm saying. And you're falling into that narrative of, why could they not get more? With that offense, the way they played it, the ball is out of the quarterback's hands so fast. It eliminates a guy like Okoronkwo. You can't use him. You've got to blitz. He's going to take up a blocker. So what you have to do is blitz behind him, or you blitz opposite of him, because he's going to be the guy right there. We're getting that guy. You block him for 2 seconds, ball's gone.
But I'm even saying in him setting the edge, whether that's for the quarterback or the running back.
Well, he's a defensive end. That's his job.
To push him back towards the middle where there's a lot of bodies, a lot of linebackers filling gaps, etc.
Right, but then you get exposed on that. I mean, it's a catch-22. You can't. His job is to guard that boundary, guard that edge. And if it's an obvious passing play, once he reads that, he's crashing. But when you're running zone read or run pass options, he has that assignment. That because behind him, go back and look on those swing plays. Go back and look where the linebacker and where the safety is. If Obo doesn't get his edge, there's nobody there. Nobody. And so he's got to play that first, because your safety has to be so far to the boundary, your linebacker has to be spread out in that slot gap there, and then your corner's out there. So when they're going 4 or 5 wide to one side, it takes everyone with you. If you put Obo in the middle, then they're just saying, hey, we're just going to run right there because there's no one. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's a schematic, and that's what I'm saying. That's where Mike Stoops has to figure out. And when they do this to me, because they're going to do it. Texas has seen it on film. Iowa State saw it from Baylor. Baylor saw it from Iowa State saw it from Baylor. Texas will see it from Iowa State. It's going to happen. How do you blitz out of that? How do you bring pressure out of that set? It's not going to involve Obo. If Obo gets to the quarterback on Saturday, it's going to be on clear passing downs. I mean, that's the only way he's going to get there. You've got to figure somebody else out. Sorry, I totally hijacked your train of thought.
You're fine. Absolutely. I appreciate the wisdom, the knowledge sometimes. Not this. I'm kidding.
It's the gray hair.
If I'm looking at moving a little bit past our discussion there, if I'm looking at the biggest thing that worries me about Texas, it is their defense. And I think their defense has significantly improved throughout the season. And the defense is what's really giving the offense an opportunity to win games, because Texas isn't going out and scoring 30 points a game.
Right.
When you score 30 points a game, you should expect to win games on the offensive shoulders. It's not happening for Texas, and it's them creating turnovers, interceptions, recovering fumbles, knocking down passes, whatever that may be. The defense is doing it, which has then provided that opportunity for the offense to score 17 points and win a game.
Let me ask you this question. Did the Texas defense improve, or did the quality of the offenses decline?
I don't think the quality of the offense has declined.
You don't think so? Maryland started the season with 51 points on Texas.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Here's who they played after Maryland. You tell me where the power.
The only one I'm going to throw out there, Matt, has been USC.
You think USC is a high power offense?
I don't think they're a.
All right, let me just tell you. Let me tell you the offenses, and then we'll go back to USC.
Okay.
San Jose State, USC, Iowa State, Kansas State, and you're telling me USC is the high power offense. Why?
I don't think USC is the high-powered offense when compared to other offenses, but I think they're the best offense that Texas has faced. How many points did USC score?
USC scored 27.
27. That's workable, right? If you're scoring 30 points a game, remember I told you should win. The reason I look at this USC program, it's because they're bringing in top talent. They're in the state of California. They're at one point in time, people may argue this, but traditionally, USC has been the power from California, and they're the school where kids want to play, and they idolize or they dream about playing on that field in the Coliseum. They still attract top talent, just like Texas still attracts top talent. It's what can the coaches do, and what's the progress that is made. So when I see this Texas team going against USC, a guy like Sam Darnold, they've got big receivers, they've got the ability to run the ball. I don't want to say they shut them down, but they limited what they were capable of.
All right, so I'm gonna throw something at you. In USC, where do you think they rank nationally in scoring offense? They're top 50. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna give you that because there's 118 teams, so right. I'm gonna narrow it down. They're top 50. Where do you think they are?
Initially, I would have said somewhere in right around 38.
You're really close to 35th. So I'm not disproving what you're saying. What I am suggesting is, yes, we've seen an improvement from the Texas defense, but I also don't think that they faced a dual threat quarterback or an offense. By the way, Kansas State's 29th. Kansas State's more of a potent offense than USC is. They've not faced an offense with a skill set that Oklahoma has if they're healthy. Mm-hmm. And the thing that you got to look at, they've not faced an offensive line. The one group on Saturday that was still kicking tail was Oklahoma's offensive line. And
I was going to ask you about that because I don't know if you noticed, Drew Samia didn't play.
Cody Ford, right? Mm-hmm. Was it Cody Ford? Somebody played in his place. I can't remember who it was now.
Cody Ford, I thought was a starter.
That's he is.
We'll have to go and look at that.
Yeah, somebody played. Yeah, I didn't. But I'm saying, if you want to watch, you're going to look it up now, aren't you?
No.
If you want to watch, if you want to have fun, watch how nasty Oklahoma's offensive line plays. It's the game within the game. I don't know that Texas has faced an offensive line like what they're going to see Saturday. All that said, Oklahoma has to figure out how to run the ball. And I don't know how you do that. If Abdul Adams is not able to go, I don't know how you fix that problem.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the Abdul Adams situation was just precautionary, him coming back out with a boot on after the half.
I hope it's not, because you lost the game for taking precautionary measures.
Then he was clearly injured.
Oh, I know. But if he could have gone back in, he should have gone back in.
I'm saying if he had a sprained ankle and couldn't put weight on it.
All right. I feel
type situation. Not a break, not a fracture, anything like that.
Okay, so defensively against Texas, again, what we hope for is 40 sacks and a shutout, right? But realistically, what do you expect to see Oklahoma's defense do against Texas on Saturday?
I don't trust the ability of Texas to throw the ball on a consistent basis, so I don't think we'll see a lot of the same struggles that we've seen going back to Baylor. I would even say going back to Ohio State because of the coverage. So I think you see a lot of playing closer towards the line of scrimmage, trying to limit the run and daring them to throw the ball, realistically daring them to throw the ball in order to win the game. Can Texas do that? They've shown that they can at moments. Again, I just don't know that it's something consistent. So it's going to be, in my opinion at least, the one factor that will decide the game.
Yes, yeah. I think if Texas tries to take their passing attack vertical, they lose. Hands down, they lose. If Texas wants to have a chance to win this game, their passing attack has to go sideline to sideline, very much what Iowa State did, and then set up those points to go vertical. Third down defense has been terrible for Oklahoma this season, and that's when you pick those spots. I expect Oklahoma's defense to be challenged. I expect them to be challenged significantly. I think Mike Warren's a guy that's going to give Oklahoma's defense struggles. I think this is a game where Oklahoma probably gives up 24 to 31 points because of defensive struggles. So the question, in my mind, flipping it is, can Oklahoma's offense score 35 to 42 points against the Texas defense? I think yeah, they can score in that area. What do you, based off of what we have now, let's assume CeeDee Lamb doesn't play. Let's assume Abdul Adams doesn't play. The guys that we know are healthy, what are you expecting from Oklahoma's offense?
You're saying assuming everyone's healthy?
No, assuming Adams and Lamb are out. What do you expect from Oklahoma's offense?
Man, honestly, I think Oklahoma will attack it in such a way that they're not going to go downfield a lot. I believe that they'll utilize stretch plays. I think they're going to try to utilize stretch plays using Dimitri Flowers. They'll try to utilize a lot of underneath routes and capitalize on, gaining 7 yards at a time instead of that 16 yards at a time. So I expect a bit of a dink and dunk.
I don't expect Texas to drop 8 in coverage. I don't either,
I think their secondary is playing at an exceptional level.
I think that Texas has confidence in their front seven where they're saying, we'll pressure Baker Mayfield. We'll get to him that way with pressure instead of dropping 8 back. That said, I think that opens up avenues for guys like Mark Andrews. I think it opens up avenues for Dimitri Flowers to be able to go out and have success playing more of a standard defensive front. I do expect, if Abdul Adams is not able to go, I expect to see Marcelius Sutton in this game. I expect to see him have some snaps, have some carries, because they need that initial burst. But I expect, here's where I'm going with this. I'm assuming Abdul Adams is not 100% or he's not playing. If that is the case, I expect Baker Mayfield to pass the ball close to 60 times on Saturday, because Texas is going to try to stop the run and they're going to come after Baker. And I think that opens up a lot of, you said, dink and dunk type opportunities. Mm-hmm. I would expect to see somewhere close to 60 passing attempts from Baker Mayfield on Saturday, assuming what we know right now holds true. Assuming that CeeDee Lamb is out, assuming that Abdul Adams is out, they're going to put it on Baker to ride or die, so to speak. So, okay, we're going to come back with score predictions here in just a second. We got to talk about the Big 12 rundown this weekend. A couple of good games in the Big 12 beginning at 11 o'clock. I like both 11 o'clock games, TCU at Kansas State and then Texas Tech at West Virginia. I think Texas Tech at West Virginia could end up being one of the better games of the weekend. But here, TCU is new territory for them. They're the top dog in the Big 12 now, number 6 in the nation. They're that team right now carrying the banner for the conference. But they're going on the road to Manhattan to play a Kansas State team that this is they're circling the wagons. That losing, they're on back-to-back losses. Vanderbilt, they lose a conference game to Texas. If Kansas State now sitting at 3-2, 1-1 in the Big 12, if they lose this game, they're done. They're done in the Big 12 race. And so my question to you is, can Kansas State give TCU a fight?
I think they can. I don't know that is something that's true as much as it is maybe something that's hopeful. And the reason I say that is because Kansas State, second-ranked scoring defense in the Big 12, right behind TCU. Surprise, surprise. TCU, 9.6 points per game. Kansas State, 20 points per game. Jesse Ertz is out, right?
I don't know. Backup? Jesse Ertz came back in that game against Texas, and when they're trying to close it out before regulation, it's Jesse Ertz back in there. So I don't know what they're going to do with that quarterback situation. I don't know.
Alex Delton, the backup there, he doesn't throw the ball.
Well, neither does Jesse Ertz.
Jesse Ertz has thrown the ball 100 times. You want to guess how many Alex Delton has?
Well, how many times has Alex Delton played?
twice.
But
two
not
games.
how many full games? Oh, go ahead and tell me.
All I'm going to say is, on average, Ertz is passing the ball 20 times a game.
And Delton is
2.5.
All right. He's a young guy.
But I think he's more athletic.
He is more athletic.
And so I think they have that going for him. Like I said, it may be wishful thinking that Kansas State can actually challenge TCU, but I do believe they have that potential. I don't think they win this game. I don't think there's any way that Kansas State can win this game. But you're asking me the question, can they challenge them?
Now, you said hopefully. So my question as an Oklahoma fan, do you want TCU to lose this game?
Yeah, I want it to be an even playing field.
Because I would think, as an Oklahoma fan, you would want TCU to be ranked as high as possible when they come to Norman.
No, because I don't know that Oklahoma can beat them.
Okay, all right, all right. Texas Tech, West Virginia. I know you've got West Virginia blood in you. I like the Mountain. If Friday locks haven't released yet, but I'm telling you right now, I think I'm all over West Virginia being only a 3.5 point favorite over Texas Tech. I think this is a really, really good game between these two teams, but I'm still not sold on Texas Tech. I mean, every time I try to throw Texas Tech under the bus, they go out and they do. I mean, I picked Kansas State to cover against them.
They are in the top 25 this week.
Yeah, congratulations, Cliff. I expected Kansas. I think they were getting like 19.5 points. I thought Texas Tech would beat Kansas, but I thought Kansas would cover that, and then Texas Tech just goes out and throttles the Jayhawks. Mm-hmm. I don't think that happens in Morgantown. I like West Virginia by at least a touchdown, and what I believe will be a very entertaining game.
Man, it's difficult for me because, as I've said and I'll continue to say throughout the years, that Will Grier is that X factor. And West Virginia's success, it's highly dependent on how he plays. I don't believe that with Texas Tech. So I am going to take the opposite side of the field from you. I do think it's a very competitive. I think it's a very entertaining game. I think it's a high-scoring game. But I think at the end of the day, Texas Tech comes out with that win.
If Texas Tech wins on the road at West Virginia, I think at that point, and when I did our Week 6 recap, review, rewind, whatever it is, podcast, and I left, when I talked about contenders, dark horse contenders, I left Texas Tech and West Virginia out because they both have a loss in conference, so this is an elimination game for them. But if Texas Tech wins that game at Morgantown, then I think you have to put them in the contender category. I just don't think they do. I'm not high on Texas Tech. Kansas at Iowa State. How does Iowa State follow? What does beating Oklahoma do for you? Iowa State goes from being a 28-point underdog last week to being a 21.5 point favorite this week. And I know it's Kansas, but do you expect Iowa State to cover that at home against the Jayhawks?
It's tough for me to take Iowa State to cover because one of the things we know about when you step onto the field against Oklahoma is Oklahoma gets your best shot each and every week. Doesn't matter who they're playing. Doesn't matter if they're ranked number 3 or they're ranked number 12. They're getting everyone's best shot because Oklahoma is the standard in the Big 12. Nothing's new there. And so an emotional game, an emotional win for Iowa State to come from behind to pull off that victory. I think they have a slump, and it's a lot closer than people think it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you have a little bit of a hangover from Oklahoma. I think Iowa State wins this game. But
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because people were so upset about Baker Mayfield planting the flag at Ohio State. Right. Why aren't Oklahoma fans upset?
I think it's one of those. I talked about this on my Fox Radio segment. It's one of those what goes around comes around type things. I mean, if you're going to do that somewhere else, you should expect it to happen.
It didn't bother me one bit.
No, I don't think it bothered me.
It was the smallest flag on the face of the planet.
It didn't even.
It's like pink.
It didn't even.
Little pencil flag.
A toothpick. Yeah. There was one Iowa State player who apologized for it even.
It's stupid.
And I don't think.
Game.
Yeah, I don't think I was not bothered that it happened in Columbus. Therefore, I'm not bothered that it happened in Norman.
Right.
And now it's disappointing that if you're going to be mad over that happening, you need to be mad at Oklahoma for providing the atmosphere for that to happen, but not mad at Iowa State. Iowa State.
No, I got you.
Okay.
All I was going to say was Ohio State fans had that large outcry. Baker Mayfield issues that apology. I feel like we're repeating the process, but in this situation, no one cares.
Yeah, no one cares. I mean, you lost the game. When you, I remember being there during the John Blake era, and I remember them losing to Cal under John Blake. I remember them losing to Louisville under John Blake, and just seeing those teams celebrate on the field. And I just thought, for me, and this is back when I was a fan of the team, not just someone who covered them. I'm still a fan, but back then there was just all fandom in me, and just thinking again as a fan, thinking that's frustrating to see that they have the opportunity to do that. If you don't want them to do that kind of stuff, don't give them the opportunity to do it. But if you're going to do it at other locations, then you can't be upset when it happens in your home field. And I think that's the attitude that Oklahoma had. Even Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield said, what is expected? I mean, I would expect them to do that. And I think that's the right attitude to have. Don't give them that opportunity, and they won't do it. Simultaneously, we're running against the clock here. Simultaneously, as Oklahoma's playing Texas, Baylor will be visiting Oklahoma State. Bears, the best 0-5 team in the country. The Cowboys are 25.5-point favorites over Baylor. Cowboys coming off of a bye week. Baylor, I think, coming off of a bye week as well. I don't remember them playing last weekend, but I don't cover Baylor. Give me your thoughts on this game.
Again, I don't know what to expect from Baylor. I definitely think they're a different team than they were to start the season, even for the first 3 games of the season. I know that Baylor has the potential to challenge people, but I also know at the same time, I can't remember the coach's name off the top of my head currently, but he's attempting to create a culture that is vastly different than what we've seen in the past under Art Briles and kind of the scandal that unfolded there. And so I see a distancing from that. And I definitely think that he's approached it the right way instead of doing something like Tom Herman would do with the fairy dust and just saying, we are rebuilding. It's about character here before it's about winning games. And when we establish that character, we will win games. So we're seeing a little bit of that transformation happen this season. Ultimately, I think Baylor is going to win 1 or 2 games this season, and I don't think one of those comes this weekend.
Yeah, Baylor has talent, and they have talent to challenge, but what they don't have is depth, and particularly on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, if they and Baylor's only hope to win this game is to make it a shootout. But if you're going to get into a shootout with Oklahoma State, your defense needs to be ready to play somewhere between 80 and 100 snaps. To do that, you've got to have a lot of rotation. And Baylor does not have that type of rotation. And so I can see this game being close initially, and then Oklahoma State just distancing themselves late third quarter into the fourth quarter based off of just the weapons that they have and the depth that they have that Baylor doesn't. The only way Oklahoma State loses this game is if they have their Oklahoma-type moment against Iowa State where they shoot themselves in the foot a couple of times. And it's not like we haven't seen Oklahoma State shoot themselves in the foot. But coming off of a bye week, I would expect Oklahoma State to be a lot more crisp than what we saw from Oklahoma. All right, here we go. Big game. Oklahoma at Texas. Sooners 7.5-point favorites over the Longhorns. ESPN 2:30 kickoff. Give me your score prediction.
I think that 7. You said 7.5.
7.5.
I think that's a fair assessment because rivalries always bring out the best in teams. Again, Oklahoma is going to get their best shot from Texas. Oklahoma is going to attempt to give their best shot to Texas. But ultimately, I think what's the over/under? 63.
I don't have.
I think it's 63.
I can get it for you. Keep talking because we don't want to have dead air.
No, that's okay. I was trying to think because I watched the show.
Texas has a 20.4% chance of winning. Just tell you that.
I watched this show with Toby Rowland, Lincoln Riley, and Teddy Lehman last night. And they talk about a lot of similar things to what we talk about, and I believe that over-under set at 63.
Okay,
so
what I'm looking at,
we're gonna roll with that.
Yeah, because what I'm looking at, there's no over-under listed here.
Yeah, we're gonna roll with that. I think both teams are gonna score points. I don't know that they're gonna hit that 63 mark unless one team scores 40. So I'm gonna take the under on that and say it's slightly under at about 56. I'm gonna give Oklahoma the win by. I said that 7.5 was fair. I'm going to take them by 10 in this one. So my score prediction ultimately is going to be somewhere 35-24 range.
And you went the long way around it.
I did.
I've got it a close game. There's still too many question marks on Oklahoma's defense to predict them to win by 10 points or more. I've got this being close. Oklahoma 34, Texas 30. Fourth quarter separation. Gives Oklahoma the advantage here. Oklahoma 34, Texas 30, 34-30, which means they would not cover that. Hey, we'll have our Big 12 preview coming up on later on Thursday or Friday. Thanks for listening. He's Rich. I'm Matt. You can follow us at Sports Heartland. At Sports Heartland. Also, we're online, heartland-sports.com. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, everybody.
Time has come when I'll be gone. Beyond the great unknown. I will rise. defying